Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Roofer Masterclass. I am your host, Pete McKendrick, with my co host, Nick. And we are excited today to be joined by Jen Paxton from Roofer, one of our own here. And we're going to shift gears a little bit today. Normally, Nick and I love to take advantage of these master classes to showcase new features and talk about what's up and coming for the company. And, really take a deep dive into the whole Roofer platform. But today we're going to go ahead and we're going to shift gears a bit here, and we're going to take a look at company culture and employee retention. We're going to talk a little bit about something that can help you guys out. I know Nick and I are just coming off IRE last week, and every time I go to one of these conferences, there's always comments made in the middle of a demo or talking with a contractor about issues with with finding employees or finding labor and how they can keep people and people jumping around and what type of security we have on the platform because of things that have happened with employees in the past, right? So lots of employee based questions always arise at these events when we're talking to customers. So I think the timing of this is very good here. We're on the heels of IRE. We're at the beginning here of the season, and a lot of people are probably starting to think about ramping up and getting ready for the new year here and getting ready to go. So lots of hiring probably in the next couple of months for a lot of roofing companies. So timely here to have you on, Jen, and talk about these topics.
Yeah, excited to chat. Have a few slides. So, okay, if I pull up my screen and share, I'm a visual person. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
sweet.
absolutely.
Cool. All right. Can everybody see my slides okay? Good?
Yep.
First one?
Yep,
Awesome. Okay,
good.
cool. So as Pete mentioned, hi, I'm Jen. My background has been mostly on kind of the people operations and HR talent acquisition side. I have helped small companies at like 20 people scale, and then I've helped larger companies. I think my largest one got up to like 300. So company culture and just employee retention is super important to me, and then also I've just seen it play out in so many different scenarios. So I'm really excited to chat through just things today. Quick things we're going to cover. So one is what makes employees happy. What exactly is company culture? Can be an elusive thing sometimes. Why is retention important? And then bonus for anyone who is hiring, contract workers. How can you engage those contract workers and retain them for future jobs? And then the last one is actually going to be based on, pulse surveys and performance reviews. And then we'll kind of tee it all up with Q&A at the end, if that's okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, cool. So starting off with employee happiness. So employee happiness can honestly vary from person to person. It really is something that is on an individual level. Some may value, a great company culture or maybe even a strong push for work-life balance, whereas others may value career development or recognition or, competitive pay. So for companies, it's really important to remember each individual has their own preference. So when you're thinking about, how do I build a business? How do I, scale a business? You have to remember all of those things really interchange and play and factor all in. So, the workplace, all the work styles, the benefits, all of those fit in to attract and retain your staff. So, just starting off, because I said I was visual. So when I think about employee happiness, the initial thing I think about is this kind of diagram here, which is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's a great visual to start with because basically the lowest structure here, psychological needs, is like this lower level needs to be met before you can go to the next level, safety needs. And then safety needs to be met before you go to love and belonging, and then esteem, and then self-actualization. So for me, it's a really great visual just to like start off thinking about the basic, human needs, and then you pivot into what are kind of the needs that you can have with your employees. So this kind of Maslow hierarchy of needs can translate to specific employees at your company. And this is going to help you because you're going to gain insights into, what are the factors that really influence employees' decisions within the workplace? What makes them, tick, what makes them productive, and what makes them stay, and also potentially what makes them leave. So, starting at the bottom of this, is the kind of survival survival side. So it's, are employees being paid a fair wage? Can they live off of what they're making? Then goes into that security side. So that's job security. It's, do they have a job now that they feel fulfilled in? Also, is there going to be, a job in the future potentially for them? And also, do they start to kind of feel like, is this just a cog in the wheel? Am I just kind of this rat on kind of a wheel, in this massive rat race here? And then if you go up to that next level, this belonging level, that's where you want to at least, get to start with. After you get past those first two levels, employees' motivations at a company really starts to kick into gear, and you can start to have conversations with employees on career development opportunities, give them feedback on their performance, and then just start to help them grow professionally. And so that's when their motivations start to go up and the starts to go up, and really everything goes up from there. Moving on to that next level, you get to see, how their work overall fits into the company. They start to take pride in the work they're doing. And then at this stage as well, it's just worth noting that employees sometimes can become more vocal about what they need, and also maybe make more suggestions and improvements to the company, which honestly is really great, because not only are you getting to understand, what they need, so you can proactively address those things, also it's almost like a signal that the employees have built that trust with you, so that they are coming to you with feedback and suggestions for their team or their business. And then the last tier here, top of the pyramid, not as easily achieved, but definitely something to aspire to. It's where, people feel like they can do their best work. And at this stage, like, their level of motivation actually becomes infectious to, other people at the company or at the organization as well.
I just want to ask you something here, Jen, and kind of get your opinion on something. I did a really great podcast with Ty Backer from TC Backer. It was about leadership and company culture. And, he has a fantastic culture at his company. For anyone who's ever been around him at any of the shows or had the opportunity to spend any time with his company. And one of the things that he said in there that really struck me was, he said, when I hire an employee, I hire that employee's entire family, meaning that he gets to know their entire family, and therefore gets to know what their motivation is by figuring out, like what is their family dynamic? Like, what are they working towards? Who are they working for? And I thought it was a great outlook on it. I just wanted to kind of get your take on that.
I mean, wholeheartedly agree. I mean, when you think about this kind of pyramid here, and also, the one before it, it is all about not just the self, but every kind of factor that surrounds the self. So, I mean, when I think about why I joined a company and kind of my motivations and kind of shared values, that is dependent upon myself. You can see in the background, I have kids, and I want to join a company that, supports me being able to, have a strong work-life balance. And that is, that entire family. All of those motivations and factors that are broader than the self really do, influence kind of an employee's journey too. Yeah. So one, things just to kind of take away from this part is the engagement side can equal success. There's a lot of just data out there that talks about, employees that are engaged are more productive, and they, when they take, in number two, when they take pride in their work, they are having kind of quality performance and higher quality performance. They want to do better. So it's really important to have those kind of focuses. And the other thing is, money is still there. I will never say money is not a thing that you should focus on. Money has to be the baseline of the hierarchy of needs. People need to make a living wage. They need to feel like they have that kind of safety and security there. And then everything else just starts to help you to build kind of a differentiation, and starts to keep those employees coming back to you, so that they could have that work-life balance, or they can have those growth opportunities while being met. So I think that ties really well into what you were saying, Pete. Yeah. I always like to share some data too, because I don't want to just be like, hey, it's just me. It's not just me. This is from the first one on the, on my left. So is from LinkedIn. So it's 90% of employees are looking for a job because they're not getting the skills development or career advancement opportunities, or even maybe like having a career path in conversation with their managers. This was surprising to me because this is one of the first things I usually help build out when I'm getting into a new company. I'm like, when was the last time we did performance reviews? Like, when did we think about like career conversations? So this is something to focus on, no matter, if you're hiring somebody, today, or you're hiring somebody in, in 3 weeks, 3 months, or you're potentially even 3 years. You want to start to think about, how am I going to, talk to this person about their career development, where they are now and where they might want to go in the future, and how that's going to fit within, the organization the company that we have. The second one, the data point to know here is 56% of people are willing to prioritize stability over a higher salary, which again goes back to that kind of job security side. Job security is one of the second most important factors that a person is considering. And then the last one here is, 40% of workers, respect is the best way. They believe that respect is the best way to earn loyalty. To learn, like, to earn that retention, it's like respecting kind of what they do, giving them that recognition and that appreciation. Again, pay is good, but there's so many other factors that can go into it as well.
Yeah, I was good. Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
I was going to bring up like process Pete here. Like, this is a big thing where it actually brings into process and the importance of that. So having that 90% part for looking for something that was skill development and stuff, it starts from the beginning. So before a lot of roofing companies that are listening here, before you guys start hiring and planning on scaling and stuff like that, make sure you have a process in place that's replicable, that's not too granular, that's something that can help them out, so that they can tie it into ensuring that they'll have a job long term, because they're going to learn, they're going to make money, they're going to make you money, and that will dictate respect. Yep. And I always found, like, in this industry, a lot of times you talk to roofers, Pete, and it's just like, respect's earned, it's not given. It's just like, yeah, but you got to give it to earn it as well. Like, it's like the opposite way with it. And I always look back at my dad's company, and he's got a crew that has been with him, 2 members of that crew, for almost 20 years. And he's been in business for 30. So like, keeping a roofer on staff for that long, it reminds me of Ty Backer and stuff like that. It's providing respect to them, recognition on what they're doing, and having a set bunch of processes in place so they don't have to struggle to succeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Nick could probably speak to this as well. I think traditionally in this industry, we think when we hire somebody, right, that roofing is a job, right? A lot of guys, especially the labor guys, it's just a job for them. They're probably going to go there. They're going to work as a laborer, in doing installations, and they're probably going to move on to another company, or potentially even, head off onto their own. And I don't think, as the owner or the person building the company, a lot of times that we look at it as a career for those guys.
Yeah.
And I think what Nick and I have seen, I think of Corey Combs right off the top of my head, Nick, is like, you look at these guys who have been the exception to the rule, and who have hired people with this career goal in mind of like, hey, I want these guys to build a career. I want them to grow inside my company. I want that guy to go from, being the laborer to being the project lead, to being the project manager, to potentially running some, part of my operation for me, and we see a lot of success in that model, obviously, right? Because all of these other things kind of fall into place. You get that engagement, you get these people that are much more loyal to you, and I think that traditionally, as a owner of a company, like, we don't necessarily think like that, right? Like, we're just hiring somebody to get the job done.
Yeah, ultimately you want that job done, but you always got to, the way I look at it is, hiring someone can be the most expensive thing that you can do. It could also be firing someone, redo everything and build that out. And that takes a lot of time to get everything moving. So it affects it. So making sure you have those processes in place to make it go will make it a lot easier.
Yeah, very, very true. So a lot of this, a lot of kind of what we're talking about also has, impacts on company culture. The driving factor of employee happiness is kind of how you're treating people. And even no matter how long a person is with the company, if you're treating them, great, or if you're treating them poorly, it's going to reflect on your company culture for sure. When I think about company culture, I think about it as those shared values and those behaviors that are making up kind of a company. And it's how those people are interacting with each other, as well as how, interacting with clients and also with customers. And to your point, Nick, each person that you hire at the company is going to have some kind of influence. And I think about it as like they could influence your company for the better, or they might influence it for the worse, and you gotta really think about that from a long-term implication side of it, because if they influence it for the worse, you know what happens? They leave your company, and that's when kind of the retention, you start to have these retention efforts that you need to proactively address, and hopefully you're addressing ahead of time. But the biggest thing, with employee retention, sorry, there's so much data on this one screen, but I couldn't help it. But there's so many benefits, and you nailed it on the head. It costs less to have the employee like you have fostering their growth than to bring on and train another one. Like it's the job posting side of it, it's the interviewing side, it's the training, the onboarding. It is just a pain to have to do that when you could have had these career conversations with a person. So that's one of the biggest things for employee retention. And then the other side of it is, to your point, actually, Pete, like the like long-term employees, like they're working at your company, they're acquiring so many new skills, and you can leverage those skills. That's super important in roofing, and honestly in other companies as well. And then when you think about retention, I can't untangle like retention and productivity, because they're all intertwined together. It's like if employees are happier, then they're going to be more productive, and they're not going to want to leave. So you want to have that be an experience. And then the other side of it is a better customer experience. If employees are happy and they're feeling engaged, they're going to give a better experience to the customers, which means referrals. It means more 5-star reviews. Honestly, it means, improved company culture, and then also revenue. It's directly tied to revenue. Sidebar. Whenever I come into a company and I like have conversations with the CEO about, people operations, I'm like, I want to help drive our revenue. I want to have employees be happy and be productive. And that hits our top line. One more data point. So from HR Cloud, companies that have a high employee engagement earn 21% more than companies with lower engagement. So this is like directly influencing your company revenue. So you really do want to treat this with care and everything as well.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, back to that same podcast with Ty Backer, he made a comment. We're talking about this, and he made a comment that stuck with me, which was, I hire fast, but I fire faster. And what he meant by that was, he's willing to give anybody a shot, but he also doesn't allow that person to negatively affect his company culture. And he also doesn't want to waste anybody's time, right? If the person's not a fit, he's quick to pull the trigger to say, hey, this isn't working out. And they do some things to help, obviously ease that person out of the company. They do some really creative things, but I think at the same time, he recognizes very early on whether it's going to work or not work, and makes that adjustment quickly so that it doesn't affect, the rest of the culture. And before he's invested all that time in, maybe training or bringing that person into the fold, if he can save himself some time and money there, he does. So I thought that was an interesting approach.
I think about that podcast a lot. There's so many nuggets from that podcast, how good it was. That was out in 2022. If you're in roofer.com/podcast, you'll be able to find it. It's called Leadership in Roofing, the Skills You Need to Lead in a Successful Business. It is really good. Highly recommend to listen to that after this. It will tie everything together nicely.
I'm going to check it out myself, since I have not listened to it. I'm not like that. That's definitely something I would jam on, basically. Going back to like that on that podcast, I bet they probably cover some of these things. But when I think about like just employees being happy and like excited at a company, there's pitfalls that will happen, and like 3 kind of buckets that I think about is like the communication, the trust side, and the culture side. And so the communication side is so crucial to have employees, number one, know what is expected of them. So like going back to what you said, Pete, like he's totally willing to take a chance on somebody, which is awesome. But also he is communicating with them, like, how are you pacing at this point? And if they're below that, like, how can we get you up here? And if they don't get up there, then he's saying, hey, this is just not working out. And that goes to like the trust component. It's like, if you're, if you're not doing well, you want to trust that your company is going to give you that feedback. And also, actually, if you're doing well, you want to trust the employee is going to, or the employer is going to like communicate, hey, you're actually being really, like, you're doing a really good job. I want to, see you grow, and here's kind of the steps you can do moving forward. And then again, all of those just really intertwine into the culture side. So do they feel like they're respected at work? Do they enjoy what they're doing? And are they proud of their work as well? I think the pride thing is really important to take a moment and really think about that too.
Big time.
Yeah. So if we're okay shifting gears a little bit, can we talk about contract workers?
Yes. A huge debate, I think, right, Nick, in the industry is whether or not to, I mean, I've heard both, pros and cons of both, but obviously a huge debate when it comes to labor is, do we bring it in-house or do we just contract it out, use subcontractors? And, some people have done both. Some people go all in, on having everybody on staff. Some people swear by not having anybody on staff and subbing it all. I had a GC tell me one time the best move he ever made in his company was to not have a single employee and to have everybody contracted out except for his 2 project managers. So, I see pros and cons to both. So I think
I've done both.
Yeah.
I ran sub crews, I ran in-house crews, and we've done it at the same time too back in the day. And there's definitely pros and cons to both. So I'm excited to hear some of the tips here.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm now wondering, like, my statement is a little biased. Like, I was going to say, like, contract workers can potentially make or break your business. So it's good to provide them with a good experience. So I'm now like, does that
yeah.
Well, think about it from like a subcontractor perspective on a roof, right? Like they are putting on what your name is about.
True.
So if they F up that part, it's not on the sub crew, it's on you.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you're the one with the warranty on there. So treating them right, making sure they're there, making sure they care about it, as if not as much as you, close to as much as you, is going to matter, because ultimately, this is the thing protecting the most expensive and the most valuable thing this family has. So
yeah, no, agreed. Okay.
I think it's a huge part. I think it's a huge part of why when a contractor does find subs that he trusts and likes, he keeps them, as long as he can, like you treat them like gold because they are so tough to find. And, obviously there's a trust level there. Like Nick said, like you're putting your name on their work. So there's a level of trust there that has to be developed, and it usually becomes a pretty good long-term relationship if you find that right person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you're just like, you looked at my slides beforehand or something. It's amazing. Like, it's just great.
Sneaky.
I love it. It's great. I mean, the thing that you talked a little bit about this, but like the very first one, you want to have just an avenue for feedback, for them to give you feedback, and of course for you to give them feedback too. But you don't know, like, improvements to your business that you might have, giving like a third perspective on this. You never know that feedback unless you ask. Like, I don't know as many people that will just like offer it up all the time. Like, but I'm constantly asking, like, what feedback do you have on this? How did you like this? Is there anything else you might do differently? Like, I know, like, nobody's perfect. Every process can potentially be improved. So why not just open that door? And asking them for that feedback starts to build that trust that you were talking about, Pete, too. It's because you value their opinion and what they have to say. They start to trust you more, which is great, because then you're building that long-term relationship. And then the next one is, be clear if you potentially have a job for them in the future. Let them know what the future holds. And if you can hire them again, like, talk to them a little bit about it. Hey, like at the end of the season, like, hey, I am going to have some more, work in, X amount of months, check back with me then, and let's start that conversation up. And then the last one is, could there be long-term opportunities? I know you mentioned, like one organization went like just full contractors, but I'm assuming that other ones potentially have like a mix of, contractor and full-time employees. And so if there is a role that opens up full-time, this is a perfect opportunity to, go for a contractor that you've worked with before, you've really liked, to get into that position. And, communicating that, as soon as will probably help, I would assume, as well.
Yeah, I met a guy at IRE who did that. He was a subcontractor for years, and COVID happened, and he had this big project, and he just transitioned to full time. He's just like, okay, cool, I'll take over that. Eventually, he ended up like building his own company and kind of working with that person on a different kind of size, because he was more of a contractor versus a roofer. And yeah, it just grew his entire process with that stuff there. So it's about really like that what you're saying hits the nail on the head, no pun intended, but allows you to really kind of grow from a contract perspective into a full-time, or see what they're looking to build that subcontracting crew into.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, you never know never know what the future holds. Maybe it's like a partnership opportunity in the future too.
Yeah. And you got to think about it too, is like Pete, we're thinking about sub crews always, but how many of the sales reps out there are 1099?
Yeah, absolutely.
They're just knocking, and they don't have any benefits. They don't have any kind of stability and stuff like that. So how can you turn a rock star 1099 employee into someone who could actually help your company from within? That's another option. Or does it make sense just to have 1099s? There's a lot of conversation about the W-2 1099 in roofing for employees. So this could be brought through not just sub crews, but for salespeople as well.
Yeah. Well, and you also can start to reevaluate like what other things can I, give them besides pay? Is there other like perks that we could offer them? Even like a health stipend. If you can't pay like the health insurance side, like could they get a health stipend that would be on top of, their pay?
Mm-hmm.
Never know. So you can get creative on that end.
I think one of the things too to note is that it's a great way to kind of test other potential avenues of income, right? So you have the ability to bring in these subcontractors and add an extra service into the mix, whether that be some type of other exterior service, maybe it's gutters, maybe it's painting, who knows what it could possibly be. But, you can use these subcontractor crews to see what kind of interest you have and to see if it's another service you want to offer, with the potential of possibly bringing these guys in later on and offer them a long-term opportunity. I know a contractor that just recently did it with commercial. He added a commercial division and is bringing in crews now to work inside the commercial division, where before he was just using them as subcontractors and doing a job here and there. Now he's adding a full-blown commercial division to his company. So he's bringing those guys in under the fold. And then now there's a long-term opportunity for them to grow inside the company. So it's a great way to kind of test the waters with other services that you might want to offer, with the potential of bringing those guys, into the mix later on.
Yeah. Love that. Yeah. So going back to the feedback side, because I think that can be really challenging for people to be like, what kind of questions do I even ask potentially? And so I called it company surveys, but you could call it like feedback, pulse surveys, so many different words on this.
Sorry to pause, but Seth Meyers is so young there. It's insane. Just like threw me up. I'm like, is that Seth Meyers? Okay, go on. Sorry.
It is. At first I thought I was Justin Timberlake, but then I was like, oh.
Yeah. A head of hair.
Yes. So I have favorite questions that I like to ask. These are more to assess, where's your company at right now? Like, how are people feeling just about your company? And then start to give you indicators on, number one, like where are the gaps? Like where are the improvements I need to see? And then also just employee sentiment, or like you could use this for contractors as well, like contractor sentiment. If they'd recommend you as a great place to work, that is one of the best ones to start to ask, because you can get this potentially from referrals, having people work for you and then, having them refer others over. But it also can be a good question just to see like, how do people actually like working here? And then another one you could actually ask is, I see myself, working here for, X amount of years. you put in the X side of it. So it's like 5 years, 10 years, whatever you want to do there. You could ask like a follow-up question. This is like, what would make you potentially leave the company? That is some like juicy qualitative data right there of like, what do I need to really improve? And then the third one goes back to like that career progression and just career performance. What does success look like in my role? And then the fourth one is kind of in the top of almost the top of the pyramid, but like I feel recognized the work that I do. And then the last one is I believe I paid fairly. So there's many different tools out there to kind of start to gauge, what's out there in the market. But sometimes one of the best things you can do is just ask people if they feel like they're being paid fairly too. And I've gotten like a wide range of answers for that one. And obviously like different factors that play into it as well. But you guys got anything for these questions? You got any favorite questions?
I like what would make you leave. I think that's important. Like when you say qualitative data, that's important stuff to kind of look at. Is there any gaps? We talk about the gaps in the sales process a lot, and this is just a gaps in your actual like retention, your HR, or like however you want to put it, process. So it's a huge benefit to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this goes, not only for your internal employees, but also like we just talked about with your subs, like pulling them aside on the job site and being like, hey, everything cool? Like we good? Everything are you guys happy with what's going on? Are you happy with the amount of work you're getting? You know what I mean? Like, so I think that this goes for everybody. Like it is an easy thing to do, especially if we're, at the job site with these guys. We can easily pull somebody aside and just, whether that be somebody that started last week or whether that be somebody that, has been there for 5 years, it definitely helps to pull them aside and just, say, hey, how's everything going? What do you guys think? What would you do differently? What could we do better? And, like you said, I think it goes a long way, not only for your own information and you're gathering your own data, but also, keeping them feeling like you care, like you're, like they're involved, obviously, like it gets more buy-in from them. So there's a lot of benefits to just, stopping every once in a while and asking those questions.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing you can always do too, I don't know how often everyone can get together in one kind of sitting, but you could have like an Ask Me Anything kind of session too, where people put maybe some anonymous feedback and then you can address some of those concerns. There's always a balance between, having a person talk to you in person about it, and then also having kind of the anonymized kind of stuff as well. I'm actually a really big fan of the in-person side of it, because then you can ask like follow-up questions and you just get to dig a little bit deeper into the particular, thing that you're talking about. But there is also like, it's oriented of like, if people feel safe kind of expressing kind of their suggestions, or if maybe they're a little cautious of it, you could always do this anonymously too. That like best practice, probably do a little bit of both, honestly.
Yeah, I think Nick and I can speak to the Ask Me Anything would be very interesting on a job site in the field, don't you think, Nick?
There might be some comments that are not safe for work.
Yeah, yeah. It may end up with some blows in the street.
I remember. No, I'm kidding. Just like, let's start talking about job site stories.
Yeah, I remember some interesting job site Ask Me Anythings that didn't go so well. So
yeah, exactly.
Okay. Maybe that goes back to the culture then of like, if this is a culture where
Absolutely.
like it's a safe space, sure. If not, then like find a different avenue.
Yeah. I would say definitely gauge it based on your culture.
Yeah.
Between internal employees and roofers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point. Yes. The last one I had here was just on the getting employee, like after you've gotten kind of the feedback from your employees or your workers, it's really important for you to give them feedback as well. This is great because it helps. Number one, it matters to kind of them, and it should matter to you as well, because it's going to help not only with kind of the employee retention side and the engagement side, but also they don't know how to improve if you don't tell them sometimes as well. The best analogy I've ever had is a pitching coach. So the pitcher is like throwing so many and like their side, I'm not a good person for sports, but like their side ball is like just way off, and like the coach like runs out and tells them that immediately instead of letting them throw like crap for like games and games and games. So you want to give them that feedback so they can improve. So coach runs out, tells them that feedback, boom, that like the slider is improving, right? So I love thinking about kind of feedback in that way, where it benefits, you know, the individual, but also in the long run, you know, benefits the company as well. And then also, you know, it all contributes, again, all the same for company culture. You know, you want to get in this like performance driven feedback kind of culture where you can give feedback. They can give feedback to you. Maybe maybe a peer can give feedback to another peer. So that's what I'll leave it as. I'll end there.
Well, Lawrence has a great question here, and I definitely have my opinion on this. I'm sure Nick does too, and I'm sure Jen can as well. It says, roofing is not rocket science. Do you feel it would be better to hire good people and teach them the industry, or is it better to have the roofing experience? You know, in my personal opinion, I think the roofing experience a lot of times can give you bad habits. And come, you know, they come with baggage. Not only do they come with experience, they come with baggage a lot of times, right? So I think a lot of times it may be better to go and hire someone who is a good person who really wants to learn and take advantage of that. You know, I often joke, but I had a contractor say to me a long time ago that he hires all his people from Chick-fil-A because Chick-fil-A has an incredible customer service training program, and he can teach them the roofing side and they become rock star employees, you know? And so, and that's, you know, he's always hiring outside of the industry. So, you know, I'm sure there's two takes to that, obviously, depending on the position, you know, that you're hiring for, but, you know, that's my take on it. What do you guys think?
Yeah. If you break down like the difference between roofers and internals, like salespeople and all that stuff, it depends. Like looking at that culture part, kind of seeing what they're like through an interview process. A good experienced roofer, a good experienced roofing salesperson could be invaluable, right? Like you can just it can make or break your company. With that being said, if anybody here has not read The Roofing Machine by Martin Pettigrew from Monarch Roofing, it is a fantastic book. Highly recommend, Lawrence, you listen to it. But Martin tells a story on stage with him and his top sales guy, his sales manager named Mark Godary. Probably butchered that last name, so apologize, Mark, if you ever hear this. But Mark was the GM at his favorite sushi restaurant that would go with his family every week. And he would talk to him. You saw how he handled his employees at the sushi restaurant, how he worked with them, how he kind of always drove success and excellence, and said, "You need to come over here. You need to come over and work with me." And they built a $50 million company out in the Carolinas there, and just on that kind of premise, where that culture is some of the best culture I've ever seen. They now have Riva Impact for sales training and company training as well. And so my opinion is based on culture fit. It doesn't matter if they are a Chick-fil-A person, if they work at a restaurant, if they're a car dealer, or they're experienced person in this industry. You got to make sure that culture fits your mindset and your growth patterns.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I feel like I have a little bit of a bias here because with my career, like people actually go to school for HR and I did not. I went to school for opera. Like I am a singer by trade. And so like
I did not know this. And
I didn't know either.
Yeah. Hi.
Looks like Pete, we have something for the summer retreat.
I guess so.
Which he actually already has. So I was like, oh, maybe sing a song. It's fine. But if I hadn't had like the first boss take a chance on me, I would never I don't know what I'd be doing. I might be doing something different. Maybe I'd love it too. But like the fact that like I got that start and they saw something in me that was just there. I mean, I feel like anyone could have that story, but it's really on like the company to navigate it, of like the level of experience that they have. Could they be moldable? Are they coachable? You know, a lot of the roles that I've recruited for in like past startups, it's like coachability and like culture fit have been the hugest ones that like we've wanted to focus on. So
yeah, absolutely.
Looking for, is that the Thank you, Jen, in the background, putting in the.
Jen with the quick find there.
I know,
She's all over that.
That's a really good book. If anybody's ever seen it, or if you really want to get fired up, go watch a YouTube video of him speaking. Him and Mark do conferences together, or go to one of their events at Riva. It's great. Like it made me want to get back on the roof again. Like,
two fantastic individuals there. Yeah, really built a tremendous company because of it.
And Mark's a good old Canadian. So, sorry, not Mark, Martin. So Martin, it's a nice little touch there.
Nice.
Well, if no one else has any questions, I mean, thank you, Jen. This was great information. I think some incredible stuff on those slides. I really love the stats part of it. I think that, a lot of the stats that you threw out there are very impactful and, relate really well to what we have going on into the industry. And, if you are hiring, if you're a contractor getting ready to hire for the season, a lot of great stuff to keep in mind. So really appreciate you sharing everything and having you on. Thanks for joining us on the masterclass here.
Thank you. I'm
Thanks
so
so
excited
much.
I got to do it. Yes.
And we'll be looking forward to some opera. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on this Roofer Masterclass. And Nick and I look forward to seeing you next time, probably in a couple weeks here.
Couple weeks for a big one.
Yeah.
Instant
Estimator revamp, right? So be sure to join us for that. Thanks, everybody, for jumping on. And we will see you next time on the Roofer Masterclass.
See you, everyone.
See ya.